In this video, I'm going to give you a complete breakdown of my Wim Hof expedition experience, how I found the entire thing, the cost, everything. So I'm just going to go through questions people have asked, and I'm literally just going to answer them as honestly as possible, because the reason I'm doing this is because whenever I was researching the actual expedition, there was such little on YouTube or anywhere that I could figure out what really happened on these events. So I'm going to break it all down and answer everything that I wish I knew and that people have asked me here. So the first question that I always get asked is, what was the total price of all this? So breaking it down, roughly if you go for a private room by yourself, it's like 2,800 euros. But we went as a group of 3 in our room, so it was like 2,200 euros, with flights being maybe from Ireland to Prague being like somewhere in around about 200 as well. And then by the time you add up all your equipment and that, it probably worked out about 3,000 euros in total. That's roughly what the cost would have been. And that's a full week. Now, you do get all your food and the accommodation, all is covered. It's standard enough accommodation. Apparently, it's a very good hotel, but it was average enough. I was happy enough. The food was a buffet. It was all right. You know, it covered the base. That's all you need. But yeah, that was pretty much the entire cost for the week. The second question the second most popular question was, would I recommend this? And the answer is, it depends on the individual. The reason being is it's yes and no, because yes, it was a good experience. I'm glad I've done it. But at the same time, if it's one of these things that you're like, is it an absolute must? I wouldn't say it is. It depends on the type of individual you are. I went because I wanted a challenge. And whenever I break it down, what's covered throughout it is, I would say if you're into your personal development, it would definitely help. There's a lot more breath work than I thought at this. Like, we're talking here, first day, 90 minutes of lying on the ground just doing breath work. Like, I've never lay and breathed as much in my entire life. I feel like I need a new set of lungs after it. So it's made up of 3 main components: breathing, cold water, and discipline. I almost forgot the third. And pretty much that's what the entire thing's about now. So it's a mixture of all 3. The discipline is doing both of these over most days, or every single day, they say. So I would say I would recommend it if you want introduction to... Start again. I would recommend this if you need an introduction to breath work, or if you're not used to, because I was used to the cold water, but I'd never really done breath work before. So for me, that was all new. I would say for people who are not used to cold water, this would be quite a level up for most people. We done a lot of prep for it, so we were well prepared. I was expecting a lot more ice, it to be a lot colder. It still was really cold. It was in the Polish mountains. It was snowy. It was like 1 degree. The water was freezing. But I was expecting it to be like constant ice water, like in, out 4 or 5 times a day. Versus like you were taking maybe dips like twice a day max. So it was one of these things where for me, I was expecting a lot more on that side, whereas it was a real combination of the breath work. There was even some bits of therapy and mental work thrown in as well. But I feel like if you need a breakthrough, you're struggling with relationships, you've got past traumas, this was good, but the D Martini experience I went to would have probably been better for that D Martini breakthrough experience. It's probably a little bit cheaper. You can do it online as well, but I found that really, really good if you have relationships, trauma, if you need real, like, not therapy, but you need help with a personal situation, or you're struggling mentally. I found that course great for any situation. This is like a good stepping stone for that, because it covers a bit of everything. And that was that pretty much covered. The next question I have is good. What sort of person you need to be to go on this? And what were other people like on the trip? So the person you need to be on this is, you need to be in your personal development. You need to be into, I would say, not like tons of medicine. This is for, you'll see a lot of like, it's a bit culty. I'm going to be honest. Now, that's not the reason I went. I went for the ice challenge, but I would say the type of person, you need to be willing to push yourself. You need to be into your personal development, and you need an open mind. Now, that's exactly what I went with. I always take everything as it comes. And the reason for this is because you want to take what complements your life and leave what doesn't. So it is a bit on the more extreme side of like, you know, fuck medicine, it's all about cold water. And I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying that that's sort of the vibe I got from it. it's like, this can cure depression. And for me, it's one of these things that will work for some people, others it might not. So it just depends on what suits you. But I always think going into things with an open mind and taking what works for you and leaving what doesn't is a really smart approach, because we can always learn a little bit from everything. There was a real mix of people on. There was old, there was young. The oldest in the groups was 70. I think we were the youngest in around maybe 25 up to 28 was probably the youngest. There's all ranges too. We're talking people who were dipping daily, people who only had like 10 to 15 ice baths that did struggle, but they literally locked and loaded and went for it. So there is a real mix. I would say you just need to be a person that's open to a challenge, have an open mind, and you just want something different. And for me, it was a different sort of trip. The third question I got asked was, why would you even do that if you hate the cold? And the thing is, see, I hate the cold, like completely, but I knew that I'd really struggle mentally to do that amount of cold water therapy in the prep built up to it, and it would be really difficult. So I found the prep tough. So I dipped for around 180 days, so roughly 6 months, every single day, to build up my tolerance for this. We even went for hikes topless at night, then dipping into cold water that was flowing in the mountains, and then we would get out and air dry and run down. So we really prepped tough for this, and that took a lot of mental, like it really did. It took a lot of mental resilience to do the prep and the build up. And for me, it's always asking myself, when you do hard things, you do things you don't want, you always get an easy life because you build your resilience, you build your character, you build your confidence. You don't build all that from easy choices. Like, it's easy to get a McDonald's, it's easy not to do these things, but then you're not building your character, you're not building that stack of proof you are who you say you are. You don't become confident by looking in the mirror. You don't become confident by saying affirmations. You don't become confident by saying you are. You become confident because whenever you do hard things, it builds that confidence in yourself that you trust yourself, you can do it regardless. And it gave me, it always does. Doing challenges like these always build a sense of self-respect, self-confidence, pride, because you know you've got yourself covered. And for me, it's always about that process. It's not the event, it's who you become during that time period. Like, I cut out Netflix, I cut out porn, I done ice baths for 6 months. And yes, people might think that's extreme, but it helped build my self-respect. It helped build my confidence back and level me up in every area, because that discipline, if you could do a cold ice bath out my back at 5 in the morning for 10 minutes in the middle of December, it's easy to do the small things. It's easy to prep your food. It's easy to have that conversation that's quite difficult, because that is such a big mental block. What did you take away from the experience? Oh, thirsty. So, next question. What did you take away from the experience? The number one thing that I sort of highlighted is that Wim Hof is a bit different, to say the least. Now, I wouldn't say he's nuts. I would just say that's worked for him. And it's worked for so many people. And that's why it's almost like a cult following. Now, I'm not one of these individuals. I went for the ice challenge. I do think there's merits to pieces of it. Like, I do think cold water always calms the mind. You always feel better after it. There's endorphins. There's science to back that. I think breathwork's really good. It's almost like meditation. I think calming the mind, reflecting on yourself is always really important to do. Now, do you need to do 90 minutes of breathwork and go into the cold mountains of Poland in winter to do it? Not necessarily, but it is a good challenge. And it's although it's called the Wim Hof Expedition, it's a mixture between a retreat and an expedition. It was difficult, but it wasn't as tough as you think. And for me, I always say, like, I learned that you want the cold, the breathwork, meditation, to complement your life, not complicate it. Versus in the process, it was almost complicate my life, spending 15 minutes in ice baths, going up mountains. Versus I like to ice bath or cold shower for 2 to 3 minutes, get the benefits, get out, and let it add to my life rather than complicate it. And I highlighted some extra notes about, like, it's the people around you that really add to it. Don't get me wrong, if you don't have anyone to do it with, it's still really good for you. But I found that doing it with people brought me closer to them. You build connection, it's fun, and it really just adds another layer, rather than you going out on a Saturday night and drinking, getting up on a Sunday, going for a dip, a coffee. It's just a different sort of social aspect, which is really, really refreshing. So during the process, I found that I actually really enjoyed that. And it wasn't just the dips, it was the afterward effect of the good conversations. People weren't on their phones, all these little things that add up. And for me, like, from the experience, what I got a lot of, and I noted this was, I do feel a sense of more confidence in myself because I really thought I'd struggle during that challenge. And I'm not saying I breezed it by any means, but I didn't get out of third gear. And I know people, like, a lot of people didn't complete it. Like, they tapped out during the ice baths versus I didn't tap out during anything. None of really the people I did tap out with, like, went with me. Uh, and like I'm sort of proud of that because there was stages where I was like, this is difficult. Like you had to battle your mind in the ice bath and go, oh, like I do want to quit now, and actually having that perseverance just to think I'm not quitting. And like I always pride myself, my identity being, I won't quit, I don't quit. Like that's who I am. And then whenever that push comes to shove, nobody's watching, nobody's gonna know if you quit, and you're telling yourself, my identity is this, my identity is on the line here. If you tap out, you're literally lying to yourself who you say you are. So for me to back that up and know deep down that when times get tough, I will not quit, it builds that confidence you are who say you are, and that's the stack of proof you need to build yourself. Did it bring you and the people you're with closer, and did you make any mates? Yeah, you make loads of friends in this. Like everybody is open, positive. It's a range of people. Like you think you might get just older people that are in ice bath. You get all walks of life. You get businessmen, you get people who are taking ice bath courses, you get people in every area. So trust me, and most people are by themselves, so people are really open to mixing. People are constantly sitting at your table. Like everybody's really friendly. Like I'll be honest, like there's nobody that you wouldn't be able to have a conversation with and enjoy. And it's nice to get that different walks from life, but all sharing a common interest. And everybody's there just to improve, feel better, get something out of it. So I think it is a really positive thing that people go to, and they come with that open mind. And it did bring us all closer together. There's something about when you do hard things with people together, like if you gym, you do dips, you do stuff that is difficult. Like whenever I was in the fire service, attending calls, it builds connection, it builds brotherhood. It's like family. Whenever you just go through tough times, it brings people closer. If somebody dies it brings everybody closer. You band together, like band of brothers almost, if you get me. And I think when you do hard things over individuals, it creates that connection that's hard to get elsewhere. What's Wim Hof really like? He is nuts. Like he's crazy, but he's in a good way. Like he's completely unapologetically himself. And as I said, like what he does is work for him, helped his life and helped so many other people. So credit due to him there. But at the same time, it is a bit culty. I don't think it would work for everyone. I definitely don't, because like there's sort of not an anti-medicine, but like get off depressants, ice water, and I believe you have to decide what's right for you as a person. So let what he says complement your life, not complicate it. So take what you like, leave what you don't, and make your own decisions on that. But there's a lot of shouting. There's a lot of like key phrases being thrown around, like water, power, and you're sort of like, give me sentences, and then you notice like the thoughts are a bit scattered at time, like they're bouncing. So the instructors always say there is no program. The program is made as you go, and that's because it's all unpredictable. So it goes off him. So it's that sort of thought process of like, it is sporadic, but that's sort of what it's all about to an extent. I found that it was fun, but I expected the ice water to make you look younger, whereas I thought Wim was like in his 70s, but I think he's in his 60s. So maybe a bit of Botox, maybe a bit of that will not hurt him. I don't know if people laugh saying that, but a case of like, yeah, he's definitely out there. That'd be the right term. But the energy's good. He's doing the energy is good for sure, and he's a different character. But if you are that far into it, you're always going to be like that. Like people would assume, people know I'm like that as well in fitness. So he's just unapologetically himself. And whenever somebody's like that, I never think that's a bad thing. The next question I have is, would you ever do anything like this again? Yeah, I absolutely would, but I wouldn't do like an ice challenge again. I feel like that is sort of box ticked now. I don't feel like it's like whenever bodybuilders say get outside your comfort zone, yet all they do is train, eat chicken and rice, and like that's it. It's like that is your comfort zone, even though you're saying it's not. Like me doing another ice challenge now would be the comfort zone. Like the challenge of it is slightly gone to an extent, because I feel like that is up there with one of the hardest things you can do in terms of cold water exposure. So for me, I would do a different challenge, no problem, but I wouldn't do that one again. I don't think there's a need to go back and repeat. If you could go back, would you bother with it? And yeah, because for me, I always thought I would really struggle with that. Like from other people I know that have been on the course, they told me that it was one of the hardest things they've ever done. And for me, not to get out of third gear in it, like to anticipate, like I thought it would break me. I thought it was going to be literally like a I thought it was going to be absolutely terrible. Like, I mean, drill sergeant, like Navy SEAL training. I thought the instructors would be roaring at you, you'd be getting in and out of the ice baths constantly. And for people to say it was so difficult, and for me to go away anticipating that like I was going to be broken. And yes, there was difficult moments, but to actually come out the other side and go, I completed it all, it didn't even get close to breaking me, builds that reserve. So I'm so glad I done it. Like, if I could go back, I was actually like very nervous and anxious about going. I think anybody would be, because you're not allowed towels to dry. Like, you're air drying in Poland, in and out of the water. You're like, you can get well, we did get hypothermia to a small extent, but like that, you're going away for that. Like, you're going away for a challenge, so it's always going to have that anticipation. 3 main lessons that I took from it. I wrote these down because I really reflected on this, and that actually leads into point number 1. I like the idea of stop, calm your mind with ice water or breathing, and reflect, right? And from that, you can see what's going good in your life, what's going bad, and what is the action steps you need to take to improve it. Take a breath. I think most of us are guilty of just jumping from one thing to another, and when we slow down, we're always getting inputs. We're watching Netflix, we're listening to a podcast while we walk. We're very rarely just still, just breathing and thinking. And for me, it's like Naval Ravikant always says, and I love this, it's like, if you don't sit still and allow your thoughts to come to the forefront of your mind, they're going to get clogged up, just like your email inbox. If you don't clear that out once a day or once every 2 days, it's going to get messy. And you imagine that if you don't do that for months, you don't know what's primary, you don't know what's secondary, you don't know what's junk, you don't know, it's just a mess, and it takes a long time to unjumble that. Whereas if you take 5-10 minutes every day just to be still, calm, reflect, breathe, you can usually see the cracks in your life very easy. It's very hard to see the cracks in your house when you're living inside of it. Whereas if you can stop, breathe, reflect, take a look from across the street and go, oh, that area of my life isn't going well, right? How do I improve that? Whereas, for example, when my relationship broke down like 18 months ago, it's because I never stopped and reflected. I was just running from one thing to another. Anytime something's went off my life and I felt off, and I'm sure you felt like this before, you just don't feel right. Like, areas of your life are going, it's because you probably haven't stopped, reflected, and went, oh fuck, that's not going as well as I would like. So I feel like doing that is like one of the main lessons I learned, and I do that now, but it emphasizes the importance of doing that and clearing your mind beforehand. Now, the second lesson I took from it was, you're a lot more capable than you think. I think a lot of people get this caught up. Like, it's the anticipation and the thought is always worse than doing it. So stop thinking, start doing, and realize, like, I really do mean that. Like, I thought I would really struggle, but you'll be surprised how many gears you have whenever push comes to shove, and it's like you have to go through. And I mean, when you put your identity on the line, and for me, it's like you'll be surprised when you prepare yourself and you keep pushing yourself. You've no idea what you're capable of. No, I'm not special. Nobody is. It's just the work you put in prior. So trust me, that to me adds up, because I thought I'd really struggled. So the lesson I took is, there's a lot more in me than I really thought, and I think that's the same for everyone, but you don't realize that until it's tested. You don't know how strong you are until you're really put it. Number 3, the main thing I got was, though, no matter how hard it gets, everything in life is easier when you can have a laugh. And it can be very difficult during serious situations, but during the ice baths, there were stages where I was laughing. Like, I would generally see something happen and I would burst out laughing, and that made it so much easier. So for me, if you can have a laugh during the most serious crunch time moments where you look around and you can generally just laugh from the bottom of your belly, and I'm probably the worst person to, like, I like dark humor. I struggle to take things seriously, even when people in my family, like my granddad or anybody passes away. And I'm not saying laugh at that, but a case of laughter gets me through things. And I think it's a really beautiful way to look at it, because there's very few things that are as pure as that, and it's not in a bad way. It's one of the purest ways you can be happy. So for me, if you can find happiness and bliss and laughter during them moments, that makes everything worthwhile, and that goes for every situation. Like, if you can just have a laugh, it makes everything 10 times easier and more enjoyable. Oh, I'm thirsty. Like, try not to take life too seriously, even though it's a challenge. I think that's one thing the instructors always got about me. They were like, he's taking the piss out of us. He's laughing. He's saying you need more ice. And for me, it's just having fun. That's what it's all about. If you can have fun during it, that's the key. And I'm so glad I did. How's life after WIM compared to before? And the main notes I made in this is, it always comes back to this Oliver Burke quote about who is the man that's happiest, the man at the bottom of the ladder, the man at the top of the ladder, or the man in the middle climbing the ladder. When you're at the top of the ladder, you've achieved the goal. You're at the bottom of another ladder. So it's always the man in the middle of the ladder that's happiest because he's chasing, he's progressing, he's in the process, and the process is always where I'm happiest. So it does always highlight to me that like the bigger the goal, the better, as long as you enjoy the process. And that's what I mean about not taking life serious and having a laugh. Yes, have goals. Yes, take things seriously, but don't stress yourself to death about it. That's not what it's about. There's a balance. You want to take your life serious to an extent, but not take everything serious in the moment, if you get me. And for me, the ladder analogy is really good. Ice baths will still complement my life. Cold showers will continue in my day-to-day running. I will still do that because it adds to my life. It resets me. It gives me energy. I also noticed that like I do have a lot more confidence since I've came back because I feel like I've absolutely smashed that goal, and that was probably my biggest goal I've set in a while. Like that I was most feeling a little bit of anxiety around. So to actually go and smash it, not even just take it, like smash it out of the park, fills me with like a sense of, I know people say pride before the fall, but it's the first time in a long time I've been proud of myself. And for me, like I've done bodybuilding shows, like bodybuilding was probably tougher in the process, but the stress of going to that, like every moment going to that, building up to going, I was like, Joe, you pull out, Joe, nobody might know. All these thoughts come into your mind, and like I would never do any of that. I would always follow through, but it's like you're getting these thoughts because of the anxiety and the pressure built up around it. But it wasn't that bad, but they're still there. Was it what I was expecting? Definitely not. I thought it'd be way harder, but that's probably because of the amount of prep we done. Others did struggle, but as I said, we were up in the mountains at night hiking, getting into the cold water for sunrise, getting out, air drying. So like we were well prepped. In Ireland, it's still relatively cold. I would say it's a mixture between a retreat and an expedition. It's like in the middle. Now I wouldn't say it's full on retreat because I think if you want to retreat, going to Bali or a fitness, probably a bit more up your street. Like rather than being in the Polish mountains, getting told you're going into ice baths to failure for half an hour. The next question is, what was the hardest part about the challenges? First 2 days were relatively easy. Like first day, a dip. At night, straightforward enough, ice baths. Second day, silent dip for like 5-10 minutes, followed by half an hour silent, warming up, no towels. Then the third day was like a 3K hike into 10 minutes of ice water in a waterfall with flowing water up a mountain, which was cold, followed by like a 30-minute like no towel, trying to heat up. It was cold as fuck in the mountains. The fourth day was really difficult. That was like a 5 minutes in, 5 minutes out, 5 minutes in, 5 minutes out, ice bath, 5 minutes in, 5 minutes out, and then followed by like a ice bath to failure where you literally are in there with other people. I think they broke our group down into like smaller groups as well. So there's like 10 of us in ice bath, and only 3 of us made that final ice bath for the full time. They didn't tell you how long it was. It felt like an eternity. But the thing is, when you close your eyes and you're just fighting with your own demons to not get out, because they allow you to get out, like you can tap out. But the thing is, if you don't tap out, you can't lose. So only 3 of us made that final one. I noticed when I had my eyes closed like this, you could feel every so often the water ripple and somebody get out. And it's not an ego game. You're sort of fighting your own thoughts. But for me, I said I would not quit. The instructor would have to call that drill over. Or my body would have to shut down, or I'd have to pass out. Now it sounds a bit extreme because I will not quit. Like I remember getting in there and going, I am not quit. Like that's the reason I went, to show myself that whenever my mind goes, it's time to quit, that I don't. Like everything in my body, my hands were sore, and then they just went numb. Like we were in the ice bath, the last one for like 12, 13 minutes, maybe more, after doing 5 in, 5 out, 5 in, for like 30 minutes plus, 40 minutes plus in the Polish mountains. It was drizzling. You no more want to do that. And the thing is, it really, you're just sitting fighting your own thoughts. Nobody's speaking. You're just silent with your eyes closed. And minutes feel like hours. And you're just battling that constant like pain of the cold water. Then you're the numbing, and then after all that, when the instructor finally came over and was whispering in our ears, making us move our hands, you couldn't even get your heat barrier. So it was getting more difficult as time was going on. They were saying, Joe, you can stay as long as you want. We don't wrap this one up. It's just as long as you can go. And then eventually they did call it because we were in max exposure time, which I was buzzing with because like that's the max you're allowed in. And there was only 3 of us, and they took us and sat us on the side of the mountain. We weren't even allowed to heat up. We were just told to sit because we would definitely have like a small dose of hypothermia. So you just had to breathe intense to heat up. I was like, oh, this isn't too bad. And my hands were like locked. Like they were like frozen solid. Like, so it was one of these things where when you break it down, you look at it like that, you're like, fuck, like it probably was a bit extreme, and that's why most people didn't make that, because I couldn't even feel my hands anymore. So you were getting small touches of hypothermia, and you're not allowed to heat up properly then. So we had to do 10 minutes just sitting on the ground, in round that, just breathing tense and trying to heat up. Then once you get a bit of a layer, you're allowed to move, walk, start doing the horse stance, which is hands side by side, and then you slowly upregulate your body temperature. But I remember getting in the back into the room with a vest, like an underlayer, a t-shirt, jumper, hoodie, coat, 3 hats, a hoodie, and like I was freezing then. Like my body was like sort of going into like shock, hypothermia, and I do a lot of breath work and a lot of like instructing to keep me right. Like, but I was sort of buzzing with that because I had pushed my body past where it probably should have went. So that sounds a bit psychotic, but I went to hit breaking point, but my mind didn't break. My body started breaking down. But I'm alright. I coped. My hands are fine. I've still got my fingers and toes just about. But like that was one of the harder things. And then the final day, it was like a 2-hour hike up a mountain, Mount Snitska, which is in half Czech Republic, half Poland. And you do 2 hours up the mountain, no top on, shorts. You've got like your boots and you've got your like spikes because you're walking through ice and snow. And to be honest, that wasn't as bad because you're moving. And the funniest thing is, whenever you're in flow, you're chanting, you're singing, you're having a laugh, like it makes it a lot easier. But it was one of these things where that was still a challenge because you're constantly cold for that amount of time. But I did expect it to be tougher, but we had prepped so much, whereas I know a lot of that broke most people and they tapped out. Now, the last thing is, what's next for the Wolf, right? I love that question. For me, it's not going to be another Wim Hof journey. It'll probably be something more fitness-based. I'm ready for that again. I feel hungry for it. So I don't know what I'm going to call it. If you've got a name, let me know. But I'm thinking fit to fat to fit. So I'm thinking of doing like a long lean gaining phase, but probably pushing it a bit on the more extreme side and getting quite big. Like I'm 85 kilos now. I have been 105 before, so maybe pushing it back towards that now. That's going to take me a long time period. Getting proper heavy and then bringing it back down to show everyone how it's done. And I think that could be a good process. I'm up for other challenges or other ideas, but I'm just going to take it day by day. I want a challenge that's going to last a bit longer, so I'm on the ladder for a longer time period. I think fitness related makes sense. It helps more people. It's going to educate them. And then I want to document that journey. I want to continue the personal development, not just with the ice bath, but like in terms of going to courses or challenging myself. But there's also a balance. I want more of a life, and I think too many of us are chasing too many things and you're not enjoying it. Like, so one of my main challenges is to make sure I'm spending more time with people I care about, like going to a sauna with my dad on a Saturday instead of working. And that sounds very basic, but like not just spend every minute chasing more. That can be a challenge as well. So it's one of these things where I'm not saying a better balance, I just want more life in every area. So that's where I'm going. Better fitness, better food, better people, better relationships, Joe, all these things, better business, growing in every area is what I want now. So I'm just outlining that and seeing any chinks in my armor that I had before. Like whenever 18 months ago during my breakup, I wrote up everything that I felt like I needed to improve on. There was things in there like that aren't even related to the breakup, but like physical competence with like not fighting, but like that sort of being able to handle yourself. So I took MMA for 6 months to fill that gap. I love that because you're becoming more of a complete rounded individual and that builds your confidence. So you haven't got them chinks in your armor. So I'm thinking maybe learning a language. I'm running through ideas in a minute, but I'm just saying, where am I fucking up in my life or where can I improve more of, and then lean into that so that it creates me more as a well-rounded individual, because that's what I want. I want to be complete. I want to chase that, but enjoy the process of it. Not put that pressure on myself. Just know that I'm moving in the right direction and enjoy it. I'm obviously going to push business content like I always do. I appreciate everybody who watches these videos. It means the fucking world to me. I'm going to be traveling a lot more. We're thinking maybe I'm going to be doing Spain over summer. I'm thinking the States now next month. Maybe Australia at the end of the year. So I'm really excited for that. It'll be sick. And that's just going to expand my horizons. And I always learn quite a lot from people. Like whenever I was in Bali, you get a real sense of gratitude from the people because they've a lot less over there than what most people would say is normal. And a lot of them are happier. So I love that. It just opens up your thought process and yeah, just a more balanced approach. But hopefully that's give you an in-depth idea of the Wim Hof experience. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop them below. Let me know whatever videos you want covered. But hopefully that's give you an entire breakdown and you've enjoyed that. And I've enjoyed the journey. That is that wrapped. And we're on to the next one. Thank you. Oh, and as always, like, share in your story, subscribe. It honestly means the world to me. Thank you very much. I'm out. Boom!